As a studio owner, I am responsible for building a team of models that are comfortable within their personalities and their skin, to be onboarded onto a platform that forms connections with people from all over the world. And in my position, I get the pleasure of working with my team to train and develop, to focus on the talent of these models, to showcase how they are in their personalities on this platform. And so, although I do wear many hats in terms of training, talent development, and coaching them and reassuring them that the experiences that they leave on the platform are going to be something that others that take their content, keep with them and build on that, is definitely something that helps them grow within their character. So my role as almost like mom, is not only to mentor them to continue to have that same confidence to create those connections, in the digital world. First and foremost, the concept of studios on our platform is very different in North America than it is, I think, in countries like Colombia, South America, Russia, and Europe. I think their style of conducting the lifestyle and work ethic of the girls is very different from North America. And it only comes down to one thing. They are more shifted than we are. It's more of like a 9 to 5 or a 2 to 10, where they're doing shifts on the platform. And I think the misconception can come with, it's shift work for a model. So it's still something where they have to commit 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of their day consecutively to be on the platform, versus our style here in North America. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that creates discipline, and I think it creates, consistency in the models. So I definitely do appreciate the view of these countries that do it in this way, because it's a lot easier to keep them consistent, to make money, and be present and be on the platform. However, myself and my studio and my style of conducting management with my girls is, they are entrepreneurs, they're their own bosses, they get to make their own schedules. And when you implement that nature into an individual, you're giving them the freedom of now feeling like they're doing it for a greater cause. I'm my own boss. This is my business. If I don't show up to my live stream, I'm not going to be in business. I'm not going to be creating income for myself. So I think the freedom that we give the models of choosing their own hours or creating their own schedules does help alleviate the misconception of not treating them fairly. However, my way is, a tad different in the sense of, I get them to self-realize if they want to be on the platform to begin with or not. Now, you have the part about me, the part that makes me lucky as well as a studio owner, is that I have the ability to choose the models that I want to work with because of such a heavy platform that I come from. We have a social media platform that has hundreds of thousands of followers. And in turn, when we do use that social media platform, we get a lot of models interested, and then we filter through the ones that have said we show interest to be on the platform. Versus some models, this might be their only source of income. So they feel like, oh, if I don't do this, if I don't do it the way that my studio owner wants me to do it, then I won't have work. I'm going to be left out of a job. And to take it a step further, I think it comes with every different individual. The platform itself has nothing to do with models being treated correctly or not, right? It's the studio owners that have the responsibility of making sure that they're good role models and that they're good leaders. I think leading and supporting especially you're working with females, it's a very different style of management and an approach that you have to ensure that their success and their well-being and their sensitivity is looked after. But it's definitely up to each studio owner to make sure that that happens. So I again want to reiterate, it does not have anything to do with the platform, in my opinion. I've been doing this for so long to know that it comes with the individual who is leading, and making them feel empowered is a big part of making sure that they don't feel like they're being treated unfairly. They have to feel we work for them as opposed to they work for us. It's very important for that.
You know, it reminds me, I used to do sports reporting, and
Mhm.
I would have to have agents to get
Mhm.
me to book me my jobs. And
Right.
some agents were wonderful and some agents were terrible. It's one of
Right.
those things, I feel like it's very similar, where you have to
Mhm.
make sure you do your research.
Mhm.
Is this studio going to be right for me? The style.
Suitable for me, right? Is it going to be something that I can relate to? Is it an unconditional bond and support back and forth that you feel you can depend on, and we are their go-tos in our studio, and we have a team of people that work with them 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week, nonstop. And in all time zones. We do have girls from Miami. We have some of them in Vancouver. We have some of them in Montreal, where there is LA, where there is the time difference. And so to make sure that you have the support for them whenever they most need it is something that is important and detrimental to their success.
I mean, it's very obvious that you invest a lot into your girls. That has been made abundantly clear. You are investing a
Thank you.
lot into your girls.
Thank
So
you.
my question would be then, how
Mhm.
do you choose your girls? Because if you're going to be investing that much into them, I'm sure that
Mhm.
you have to know it's going to be a really good fit.
In simple terms, they choose me. So I have to know that in order for them to be successful, they have to understand the concept that I cannot work alongside people that are going to be lazy. I cannot work alongside people that are going to be procrastinating, or that are going to, especially because it's so hard to, like I said, wake up every day, turn on your ring light, go live streaming, oh, I'll do it later. You're your own boss. You feel like having a me day that day, or you feel like having a me day the next day. And it's just harder to commit to your responsibilities when you're self-employed and when you're your own um, again, your own boss. But it's key to hold yourself accountable for, okay, no, I have to get this done, and then I get to hang out, and then I get to shop. So my lifestyle is very much like that. I've been my own boss for many years. And so empowering the models that I choose, like I said, they have to choose me in the sense they have to relate to my lifestyle. They have to relate to being able to hold themselves accountable to being their own boss. And I do give them a period where it is a grace period of a like somewhat of a probational period to see if this is something they like, they enjoy, if they see long-term success, or if they can relate to having a job like this. But again, what I mean by they choose me is not only do they choose my work habits, my discipline, my consistency, my passion for getting it done. And I tell them all the time, a few of our empowering conversations is the hardest part comes from getting the work done when you feel like you can't do it. My core values, they have to choose my core values. And it goes further than they're not just models. Again, not only are they influencers, in my opinion, they're the example of girls that have to stay consistent, committed, disciplined, and positive, because they're portraying their energy through a screen, which sometimes is harder than human contact. And so it's a lot harder for them to be like, I'm having a bad day. Why would I want to go on live stream? Why would I want to put myself out there in that kind of a light? I feel like social media is a little bit draining, can be draining at times. And so for them to choose to do it even on days that they don't feel it comes from them choosing me as a mentor, me as a leader, as the example of I get it done, even if I have to cry for an hour and wash my face a couple of times, and have one of my executive assistants who I cherish with my whole heart tell me, you have to do it. You don't have a choice. You're getting it done. Because if you don't get it done, no one can do it for me. And that's the same thing with our models. They've built connections with people on this platform that they can't fill with another model coming in and saying, let me take over for her, right? That connection is so genuine and it's built so directly with the other person that if that influencer model does not show up that day, then she's letting so many people down that are looking up to her for her to just show up.
You touched on, I mean, a ton of amazing points there. You reminded me of this quote. I think it is, discipline breeds freedom. Like if you can be disciplined, you can have the freedom later, but you have to have that discipline. I want to talk a little bit about your journey. How did you get here? You know, and where does this amazing work ethic come from?
That's okay. It's very dear to me. It's a special part of my life. I love, and sometimes hesitate talking about. It's a special part of who I am, and I think it comes from growing up. I was, I think it's safe to say, I was a spoiled brat. I was a princess. I have the most amazing parents. They're the best of friends. Although they're divorced, they're the best of friends. And life humbled me really early on in my years because my mother got diagnosed with cancer. And at the time, I was devastated. I thought to myself, what will I do if I don't have the support of my parents? Being young enough to understand that the only person I had was myself. And so at a very early age, I developed the characteristic of if it's not me, it won't be anyone. And I was fortunate enough that my mom got through her diagnosis. She's perfectly healthy and she's great. But within that pressure and that time of my life, I discovered that instead of feeling satisfied from having it given to me, I felt that the most amount of pleasure and confidence and value came from earning it myself. And that's where my work ethic comes from, is that inheritance does not feel better than earning it. And so at a very early age, I learned that, and I became independent, extremely independent. And then it became something that was a part of me. I felt like the joy of being able to say, I did it, I got it done. It wasn't so much about the materialistic, it was about the freedom of being independent. I was able to do whatever I wanted with my time because I had learned that if I value it and I set my goals, that again, the only person that was going to get them done was going to be me. And that came at 19, 20 years old. I decided I wanted to get a full-time job. So I was working in the corporate world. I slowly started climbing the corporate ladder, and I just took the knowledge of what it took to build and lead and manage a corporate business. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to take that knowledge and apply it to my own. I'm going to be my own business person. It's going to be my own store that I'm going to be opening the doors to, or it's going to be my own clothing that I'm going to be selling, or my own restaurant that I'm going to be feeding people at. And so that's where I started to grow myself as a business owner. And then after the pandemic hit, we had a full agency of girls that were in the entertainment industry, that were in the service industry, bottle service, bartenders, club promoters, retail employees. And when Canada got hit with a large, very strict lockdown and large amount of restrictions, those girls that were now dependent on their income now had to resort to us to say, now what do we do? And it was at that moment where we manifested the studio that we now have. And we just thought we can do the same things that we do physically, but in the internet world and in the digital world.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for sharing. That is so inspiring.
Thank you.
You talk about how basically the world forced you to pivot and forced these girls to pivot. Mm-hmm. What do you look for in your partnerships as you're building this business on the online space now?
We were very fortunate when we first started with the platform that we had, at the time, utmost support all around. The account managers were readily available whenever we needed something. Luckily, we have a dozen group chats on WhatsApp and on technology where we can just communicate with each other within a simple message, get a simple response. And so it's facilitated the speed of how much we communicate with each other. And that also develops the growth of our studio. Support from account managers was very important. And not only that, but it was also relating to each studio differently than they would, as opposed to me just messaging tech support and being like, I have a problem. They're going to give me a somewhat robotic answer, whereas our account managers, our support team, and that was more of like our backbone to the success we provided in the platform, because they knew each model independently. There was reports that we were working with together. There were conversations with the models and the studio owner and the account manager that would be contributing to the account managers learning about the model, the differences that they had, etc. And so I think what I look for in a partnership is all around fairness, getting what we give. And oftentimes partnerships in this kind of world feel very about the numbers. Let's be honest. It is about the money at the end of the day. But with our partnership in this situation, we never felt like we were just another number. We felt like we were a family. We felt like the account managers could really support us because they knew the models by first name. They knew their weaknesses and their strengths. And so again, just feeling like they were a part of our studio and not so much, separate from. I think that's the most important part about the partnership, is just support. Right. That feels real, that feels genuine, that's not robotic, that's not forced, that's not, oh, I have to, if not, what else will I do? It's just them wanting to follow up with us, to feel like, here are some areas where we can work on this. These are ways that we can do it. How does that sound like with you? And so we definitely have that. And we've had it since the beginning. Very fortunate to have met Mr. G. But I think his expectations is that everyone has a quick solution to whatever problem that they might be facing.
Absolutely. And I can tell you that the feeling is mutual in working with you and your studio. Everyone I talked to before our interview had the best things to say about you. I mean, everyone. I talked to Steven, and he said that you're the best studio owner he's ever worked with. He adores you. Everyone at the company adores you and your models.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been such a pleasure for me to have met all these wonderful, wonderful people. Steven is just out of this world. Him and I would have conversations that I never expected to have about models in our studio and our strategies that I never thought that I would experience. See, this is the strange part about technology. I felt like I had known Steven for a decade. And I have friends that that are tangible within my own city, that I can just drive up the street and say, let's go for a coffee or let's go for a business meeting, that I felt way less connected to than I did with Steven. And so that just goes to show you the dynamic that we had. It didn't matter that it was over Zoom or over the phone or over text message. It was just the ability to connect with each other through that and build a bond that I felt. Again, I'm humbled that he speaks so highly of me.
The whole company.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that from every single one of you.
It's interesting. You mentioned this bond that you were able to feel with Steven through online. And I think it kind of speaks to why this industry in general, with platforms like Jasmin, are so successful. Because you were able to develop that, it was a working relationship, but I know that some of your models have really been successful on the platform. Yes. And Steven did tell me that, you guys would spend hours talking about strategy for your girls. For me, that shows a huge benefit and value to having a studio, at least a studio like yours. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts? What would you say to a girl who's kind of just starting in this industry and she doesn't know if she wants to work with a studio or if she wants to go solo? What would you tell her?
My best advice in that situation is that when you are when you are the talent, I think focusing yourself on talent should make you consider that you don't want to focus on managing yourself as well, because it's a two-part job when that's the case. And when you are so successful and you have so much talent in you, it's much easier to navigate through the industry if you have someone that knows the operational side of it guiding you. Now, not everyone necessarily needs the guidance, but I think one thing that our models definitely oftentimes forget is that you won't know the amount of growth that you have unless you're blindly yourself. And in order for them to be artistic and to be themselves, they have to have the trust in someone that knows to guide them through the areas that they might not necessarily feel like they want to work through talent and management. And considering if they'd like to have an agency or to go independent, I think speaks to their growth. And there are some, live cameras, there are some content creators that have been doing this for so long that it's like clockwork to them. For any new model, for any new influencer, I think it's important that they do gain all the knowledge that they can through having leadership and management and mentorship, and then eventually considering if they'd like to go independent on their own. But I think for someone starting out, it's a cushion that they would not regret.
Right. It's like you're basically giving them the experience and expertise that would take them years and years and years and years.
Right.
Gain.
And especially in the digital world, when you have a technical issue or when you have to navigate through technology and you're like, oh my God, this is foreign to me, or this is something that makes me uneasy. Well, if you had management and support to do it, you wouldn't have to deal with it. Whereas I've experienced our models are sometimes so independent. They'll come across a technical issue and they will often say, I'm done for the day. I've had enough for the day that I don't feel like I want to connect. I don't want to live stream today. That technical issue made my head hurt. Well, if we had figured that, problem out for them, it wouldn't have affected their work time for that day, right? They're not being productive if they're dealing with the problems that we could be dealing with, essentially.
100%. I mean, that
Right.
just makes so much sense when you have to basically perform and have that positive energy, and you've been dealing frustrated with technical issues. It's hard to, that's
You're
an
not
energy
going to
zap.
want to do anything else. Exactly.
I know you mentioned that you have models that do a lot of different things. How do you choose which models would be good for a platform like Jasmin? What does that type of girl need to have to be successful here?
I had this conversation with my right hand right before we jumped on the call, because I felt like it was something that I had to hear from outside coming in about this. And she mentioned to me, attraction to the looks is step one. So right away, when you see a girl and she's good looking, attraction forms the first step to that connection. But essentially what we really look for on a platform like Jasmin is personality. And that drives you the home run, because there's only so much that you can accomplish by the exterior looks and by the initial attraction. And then the bond, Jasmin is all about making connections and keeping those connections and then making more. So the bond and the connection really stems from personality. Having an outgoing personality, being yourself, not being afraid to express how you really are and who you are and how you feel. A lot of the members that we have on our platform, they look to someone who's going to bring out certain positive qualities within themselves. And so for our models to really have that ability to be them, when you're confident, you radiate confidence. When you have positive energy, you radiate positive energy. When you love, you radiate love, right? And so our models having to radiate certain personality traits is important to the members that are looking for that. They wouldn't be on the platform if it wasn't for that in the first place.
I love exactly how you said exactly what you said. Because you broke it down to its most fundamental, basic need. These members on the platform are looking for love, and that can show up in a lot of different ways, but you have to be someone who's able to project that and give that through a screen.
And on your worst day, to make it even more challenging. Ozzy, come here. Come here. You want to say hi?
Oh, what a cutie.
Go.
See, that's why we love dogs so much. They are the biggest
Right.
projectors of love, you know?
The biggest and the purest.
Do you have international models, and what are your thoughts on foreign models?
We mainly have most of our models based out of Canada. A few of our girls actually moved once they got the financial freedom to make that move. They did decide that they were going to pursue things in the United States, and that was very lucky on our end to think, wow, we contributed to making that move. And so we do have a few models based in Miami, a few of them based in LA, and Vancouver and Montreal are close by to us, but they're not based in our city. So we definitely also have those models there as well. We are focusing on the success of our North American studio and our North American models first before we branch out to international. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's not so much the manpower. See, it's not about the people and the hours that they put into it. It's about the energy. Because like you said earlier, you can't always have the same outcome if you're just a certain way through a screen. Whereas for me, the girls have to feel my energy. That's how I motivate them. They have to feel like they can connect to me and how I am. And so to do that, oftentimes I have the assistant schedule me on a given day, 30-minute, 45-minute phone calls back to back to back to back, so I can have an opportunity to speak to every single model within that day or two. And it's like a powwow with Mish. And when I tell you that at the end of that day, I'm unrecognizable because the energy is just that I'm, exhibiting to them, and it has to be genuine. But there are some times that even for myself, my energy has ran out. So I have to be aware that I can't take that phone call because I wouldn't be giving her my best and I would not be giving her my all. And in turn, I'd actually be doing something harmful to her because maybe I'd be moody or I'd be dismissive or I would be short with my answers. And so that wouldn't be fair to her because she's expecting mom. She's expecting nurture. She's expecting guidance and push and love. And so if I can't feel that at the moment, then I definitely do have to be genuine with myself and with them and say, let's talk tomorrow as early as you want. Call me when your beautiful eyes open and I will be there. But right now, I'm not my best.
What I love about what you just said is the authenticity, the honesty, and the realness that you keep in your relationship. I mean, your relationships with your models, because at the end of the day, you're a human being you know, and I think some people try to, like, even though they're not feeling good anymore, they just try and power through and do, and it just completely kills any type of authenticity. So
Absolutely.
really
And
admire
I
that.
think, and for a studio owner, when you do that to your model, you're expecting subconsciously her to do that on the platform. So the energy I'm projecting onto them, they're projecting onto our platform. And it's a direct reflection of our studio. So I have to be extremely careful, because the last thing that I would want is that image of the models, the image of me not being my best, going on to them, and then that image of them going onto the platform, because they speak so highly. They have such a reputation. The Canadian girls, they talk about them as the Canadian girls, and so the Canadian studio has a lot of pressure, and so we have to keep it tight, and that's what we strive for.
You mentioned earlier that, you know, some of your girls have just hit this level of financial freedom
Mhm,
and it has completely changed their lives. Can you
mhm,
talk about how platforms like Jasmin have empowered your
mhm.
girls to live the life that they want?
Absolutely. It's the greatest gift, by the way, financial freedom, time freedom, because you don't understand how much it's valued at until you have it. And once you have it, you don't want to let it go. So this platform has been a blessing to us, because the girls can really depend on this source of income from the comforts of their own home. And even though it is a harder job to show up to, like I said, sometimes you need to get out of your home, go into the office, clock in, and know that your day is starting. But once you get the models that can adapt to that different lifestyle of just waking up and having their breakfast, maybe connecting while they're making breakfast and things like that, you're now building a person who lives through their own time management and through their financial freedom, and they become happier. Financial freedom creates happiness, in my opinion. From my personal experience, I can tell you there's nothing more rewarding in the world. I think my utmost wealth is being able to wake up and say, what do I feel like doing today? There's times that, and it's not something I'm very proud of, but there's times that I will postpone a meeting for 3 hours because I'm shopping at the mall. my and my executive assistant will say, "You're shopping? We could have done this 3 hours ago." But it's my time, and my time is priceless. The girls are, they do the same thing. Their financial independence creates such a freedom for them that they're able to wake up and decide what they want to do with their day. And it's that that drives them to want to go harder most of the time. And so, again, the financial freedom Jasmine's created for our studio has not only changed lives of girls that are, you know, in a stage of their lives that they're just getting established, but it's also created such a different lifestyle for the girls that are just getting started, that are new into being independent, that are new into being self-employed, and it's given them the freedom to choose what they want to do with their time. And so again, like I said, it radiates this energy and will to want to continue doing those things so that they can keep gaining the freedom. It's not even because it's a financial or anything to do with material. I think it's just, again, your time. When you allow to tell yourself what you're doing, as opposed to having life and society tell you, on the other hand, it's liberating. I feel the girls that understand that, especially our studio, they they strive for that. They crave that, and that motivates them through that the independence that they get from that.
Absolutely. And I mean, there are a few key words that you said that I think are so powerful, and they're simple words, but
Mhm.
choice, it's your
Choice.
choice, freedom,
Mhm. Mhm.
liberation.
Mhm.
Now more than ever, women, we have the power to take control of our lives and have this freedom, financial freedom, like that you said, creates this luxury of time
Mm-hmm.
more than we've ever been able to in history. And a large part of it is the digital age, the internet,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
we have full control. And yet there's still this stigma on these around these platforms and this industry of it being something taboo or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's giving people their wildest dreams. What are your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on all of that?
It definitely hits home for me because the first thing I think of when we go into that is I wouldn't have been able to live my life without technology. Technology has facilitated that connection, first and foremost, for me personally. And I think for our generation, it's something that has brought us all together and connected us through technology and allowed us to advance in our lives. I think in order for us to grow as ever changing people, we have to accept the thought that somebody wants to do as many things as possible with their day. We only have 24 hours though. So sometimes you want to see your best friend and you want to go grocery shopping and you want to read a little bit of your book and you also have to work, as opposed to driving 30 minutes or 40 minutes to see your best friend and having, and then 30, 40 minutes back, you just pick up the phone and you FaceTime them while you're doing your groceries and you're catching up at the same time. And so it's created room for us to get more things done with our day because we have the ability to use technology to facilitate those connections. And so look back at, when I speak to I've had the pleasure of speaking to my grandparents about things, and I've always been so curious. And, when you get to a certain age, like, what do you wish you would have done different? And I think every single person I've ever spoken to has always said, well, I wish I could have done more. I wouldn't have done it different, but I would have wanted to do it more, even the small things. And so making part for time management in your life, especially through using technology, it gives you the ability to do more. And so that's really important, I think.
I'm curious what the culture is like in your studio. Is it like a big family? Are the girls friends? Is it kind of separate?
It is a big family. And with that comes a thin line between family and professionalism, right? And also it comes with being able to paint them a picture that I'm their mom, but I'm also their boss, right? And so the culture in our studio is that we have an open door policy. And what I mean by that is that they have to feel comfortable coming to us as, the management side of things, that they feel comfortable coming to us at any moment in time and for any reason. But also, who can relate more to each other than each other, right? The girls. And so we actually have certain bonding get-togethers that we put in place for them, or parties or pizza nights. Like we had a ton of them last summer with some I was at, some I wasn't at, where they got to hang out with each other and be together and really not necessarily speak about their experience on Jasmin, but just make connections in person that they had already made through their bond on the platform. Not only do I want them to feel like they're teammates or colleagues, but it's almost like, because of all the misconceptions that online platforms bring to the table, it is important that they not hear it from me, who might be selling them a dream, but they're hearing it from someone who's physically living and going through it. And so they know that it's not just a painted picture. This colleague of yours, this teammate of yours, is telling you from her own experience what she takes from that personal journey that she's on. That you might be on might be a little different, but there are going to be certain points that they're going to be able to relate to with each other.
I think that's really important. Again, though, one thing that is just a theme in this interview for me is how much you really invest in your models. And I can tell quality is extremely important to you.
Important. Absolutely. Yes.
I know that quality is a huge pillar for LiveJasmin as well, and Jasmin. And I can see why that's a good partnership. What is it that inspires you to invest so much in each individual girl?
I had a model early on in our journey say to me, we have two business owners. We have two studio owners. I'm a co-owner of my studio. It's myself and a male. And I had her say to me, you don't get paid. You don't get anything out of how much you love me, how much you nurture me, how much you invest in me, how deep you go to the length. Why do you do it? Funny enough, I think it's my character in the sense of I don't know where life is going to take me one day. And that model that I'm now investing in today, one day could turn around and be a doctor in a hospital. And I might find myself on a stretcher next to my co-business owner. And if she can only save one life, she's going to remember the impact I caused in hers. And I don't want to say that I think she would choose me, but I think being righteous is something that is very detrimental to me as my character. Doing right by others makes me feel right with myself. And so I wouldn't be in it if I wasn't 100%, if I wasn't fully invested. And so it's easy for me to, I mean, it's hard, but it's easy for me to choose to make the choice that I want to be fully invested and invest as much as I can, because I know that in one way or another, life is just going to give that back to me tenfold.
You know, I've been told that your girls, you always had some of your girls in the top earners on Jasmin. And to me, it's very clear why, because you really are teaching them how to love by loving them and showing them. And as we know, it is the love that makes people successful on these platforms. We, you know, people want to say it's the sexuality. I think that's what opens the door, but it is the love.
It is. It definitely is. I think I can agree 100%.
What are some of your thoughts about what's needed for this industry to be portrayed in a better light, a more realistic light? You know, this is about connection. It's about love. You're talking about some serious entrepreneurship today, you know. Why is there still all this negative stigma surrounding platforms like Jasmin, surrounding this industry?
I think, unfortunately, it's been so sexualized that it's removed all of the core feelings that it actually makes our members feel. Now, at one point, we had our sister company, Jasmin, that was supposed to be mainstream and influential. And it had nothing to do with explicit or sexual. And we found that we were able to really understand that the members, oftentimes more than the sexual or the explicit, actually look for the bond. And so it's the connection. It's being free and being who you are and being yourself. And again, like I said before, just not being judged by the other person. So unfortunately, we've kind of, it's been sexualized based on, you know, the look and the certain aspect of some of our categories, for lack of a better word. But genuinely, I think the long-term connections and the long-term bonds that are formed on the platform are through more genuine feelings than just somebody's looking at a screen, you know, the model is wearing lingerie and she's being flirty. Also, the stigma comes from it being really scripted sometimes. A lot of these live streaming platforms are so scripted. And it's because they're teaching them, I think, you know, a catalog of where, well, this member is going to want this, so this is how you're going to have to do it here, and this member is going to talk to you about this, so make sure you do it like this. For me, I'm like, love, connect, be free, just speak your mind. If they want to connect with you, if they want to engage with you, they will. Some girls will go on the platform and they'll research when they're newcomers. I'll tell them, I used to prohibit them from doing that. Don't do it. Don't compare yourself to the other models, because you're you. And so you have to be your best you. And there's hundreds of thousands of millions of members that are watching you. If 10 of them don't want to connect with you, there's hundreds of thousands of others that will. So don't change yourself to want to fit into whatever the platform is expected you to do. And I think that's why there's that stigma, because we have all these models that are doing the same thing. And so it's a stereotype that gets built off of that. Whereas for my studio, they're so different. So I feel like it's an approach that you can't fake. It's genuine. It's just, it's them. I can't, like I said, I can't replace one of them with another one because they're so them. So it's an unfortunate stereotype that they've created with these online platforms. I had it myself. I was one to think there is no chance, no shot that I would be associating myself or my reputation or my name to an online platform, to a camming site, to a live camming site. But when I was in it and actually saw how different the world really is when you're in it, I understood it comes by choice of how to act while you're on the platform. You can have those stereotypical connections that are going to be there if you allow them to be. And you can settle. You can settle by allowing a member to say, I want to talk to you like this today. And the model will settle for it, won't make her happy, but she'll settle. And that creates and adds to the stereotype. And what I teach in our models and what I encourage our girls to do, never settle, respectfully tell someone, I don't feel comfortable, or it doesn't make me happy. Maybe she's comfortable. They're all very beautiful, amazing, full, confident individuals. She might be comfortable wearing, you know, a bikini to a video call. That might be her comfort zone. She might be totally into it. But if it doesn't make her happy, then why do it? You have to teach your models not to settle, or you're just contributing to the stereotype of camming site. And that's all it is, and that's all it'll ever be. Because we look at it with a different approach, and I think that's where our results come from. We are looking at it from a completely different approach. I know you mentioned that we've always had top earners on the site, one way or another. It's just the approach. It's really, that's all it is.
First of all, everything you just said was so deeply moving. And I mean that. I mean, deeply moving.
Thank you. You're very sweet.
You touched on something that I think is so key and so important, in that part of the stigma could be contributed by the industry itself in trying to play these roles, as opposed to just letting things come naturally and be from that place of love. And, you know, if you are uncomfortable or you don't like something, you know, do what you are happy to do, because that energy is going to create more joy for you and whoever you're talking to. It's similar, even, you know, when I do these interviews, I know questions that I want to ask, but I always believe in letting the flow of the conversation and life kind of lead
it. Exactly.
Because that's how you get the magic. And this entire interview has been just that.
Thank you. Magic is one of my favorite words. I often say, have a magical day. And you saying that about this interview made my day. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. It was my pleasure. And I do, of course, want to reciprocate that gratitude. I'm a very grateful human being, and especially for being in the platform that I am and having the team and the support that I have from every single one of you guys. And it is also my pleasure to be in such a successful business and huge family. So I do thank you as well, and for giving me the opportunity to share my moments on the platform with you.
It's an honor, and
Thank you.
continued success for all of us, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Sure. I'm like, woo!
Yeah, you did it, and you did
Woo now.
amazing. You did incredible. I
you.
mean, everything you said
you.
was just so valuable, and it had
Thank you.
a lot of wisdom and just love in it. You know, you can feel that love. So
Thank you.
yeah,
I think once everyone understands that the answer will always be love, you know, in anything, in everything.
hands
So
down.
as tough as that is, because sometimes it can be so damaging, it's such a powerful feeling, and it drives you to do certain things, and it's you know, there's no measure to it. There's no, sometimes the heart does things for a reason that we have no idea. And so, you know, putting that into a business, that's that's long term, that's longevity, just like putting it into anything else. So sometimes people say love and business should be so different. The foundation of a really successful business is going to be love.
Every single time.